Good Tuesday, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. Thanks so much for tuning in as we go ahead and take a look here at that Doppler radar right now with that temperature picture overlaid. You do see no showers here on the board, anything like that, but we do have those temperatures cooling on down, but not to the level we've seen here the last few nights. No frosted blizzards in play, anything like that. So that's definitely some good news here. As you see, 61 degrees toward Keystone in the last observation, but I know where I'm at, we're already down to 52. Gainesville there, 60 a little while ago, but again, dropping on down here across the region as we get into those 50s and then in those 40s here for many spots later on. I see that full forecast here, that extended look at things here in just a moment, but I'll go ahead and move the map down a little bit. You do see some warmer temperatures down towards central Florida right now on the board. I know as we get down here toward the Villages area there, about 70 degrees, and even down toward Orlando here as you look further down, 71 as of that last update. Again, going down some, but not to the level we're seeing up north here in the northern part of Florida. But as you do see, the dew points right now, these are a pretty good indicator of some of those overnight lows. You see 46 Keystone, 48 Gainesville, so definitely seeing some drop here as we get later on in toward the overnight hours here, but again, not in toward those 30s. I know this morning where I'm at, we got down to 38 degrees, so that's kind of an indicator here of some of that cooler weather coming into play. Just looking at some different things here, 37.6 degrees. No rain, of course, here today towards dark, but we'll go ahead now and zoom on out a little bit because we do have some precipitation to talk about. Some spots here as we get further on up, we'll kind of look at some things. You see some wintry precipitation here toward Canada. I know as you get just over the border there, you can really see that standing out a little bit more, but some there toward parts of Montana as well. So we're going to have to keep our eyes on that. But you see quite a few reports of snow toward Canada there. Some of our radar images not showing that on this mode of things, but again, just kind of an indicator there of some of that wintry acts. And I know my description was about when is the next cold round really coming in. Well, we're going to have a cooler round come in later this week. Not as cool as tonight, but it's going to be a departure from what we're going to see here as we look ahead in the next day or so. I mean, tomorrow we have 80 degrees, or 78, excuse me, and then some spots could get to 80 there tomorrow, and then 80 on that average temperature here for Thursday before we cool on down to about 72 on Friday. So that's the first round, but next week we'll see in that 7-day forecast when we really have a core air mass come into the picture. I mean, you see some warm temperatures out toward the Lone Star State. I mean, we're sitting toward those lower 80s there in parts of Texas right now. Definitely interesting to see that. Definitely kind of interesting to see that temperature trend here with the cooler air is more out toward areas in the east right now versus the south central part of the United States as we kind of keep our eyes on things. And now also keeping an eye on some of those cameras here locally. So let's go ahead and take that local view back here and get out toward our viewpoint there at the baseball grounds in Jacksonville. We'll start off with that viewpoint here today. I know we're after dark, so we're not going to quite see as much in some ways, but with everything lit up, it kind of makes for a pretty interesting image overall, a pretty image here, honestly, as you look out there toward Duval County. So just kind of giving you guys that idea right now there. As we now go on over toward Jacksonville Beach, you're not going to see as much lit up out there, obviously. But you still see some as we look further off in toward the distance on the beach line there. You can kind of see some of that water action there, but not seeing anything like what we saw with that coastal storm here about a week and a half ago. And then we'll go down towards St. Augustine now. Take a look over there. You'll kind of get an idea of what's happening. Pretty calm conditions, and then get you out towards Cedar Key. We'll kind of go on over there if we can. We'll move away from St. Augustine, take you out toward Levy County. That's the viewpoint right now there. I know we're going to be having that lunar eclipse as we look ahead toward Friday morning, so it's going to be interesting to see if we can get some cloud out of the picture with that wind front in play or not, but we'll kind of keep our eyes on that. And I know we'll also take you out toward Tallahassee, Leon County, the Florida Big Bend, and see what's happening there. You can see here a few spots on the lens, not rain, but as you see in Doak Campbell Stadium lit up there, and I know that big victory against Miami on Saturday, and football and big testo up at BC this Saturday. Pretty cool conditions expected for that. Maybe not extreme cold, but for that area, but for what FSU's used to, definitely something everybody needs a jacket there for Rui as they're headed on up for that contest in Chestnut Hill. So I will now go ahead and move away from Tallahassee's camera image because I do have some interesting facts here to talk about with hurricane season. We kind of talked about this some yesterday here, but I know we also just want to keep talking a little bit about the tropics since there's not a lot going on here overall. I do want to kind of get into the tropics some here. So let me go ahead and move away here from that image because the hurricane season winding down. We're now on November 16th. I know the anniversary of Hurricane Kate coming up pretty soon. That was 36 years ago as we're looking back there with the mathematics. 36 years ago as we get toward that weekend, early next week time frame in that part of the country. It was a big deal, folks, and I'll kind of say you why, because I actually have a graphic for this in the system. We've shown some of these to you for around Stark, but I put this together today for the Tallahassee area. I just kind of showing you all the hurricanes that have come within 50 miles, the center of them anyway, of Tallahassee since 1950, and we've had 6 of them, 2 of them here in the last 5 years or so with Michael and Hermine. Of course, Michael is on the far left view here of this. I'll kind of step on over, in fact, and see what we're talking about with this. You can kind of see that purple line going on there. Did weaken on down a little bit more as we got towards southwestern Georgia, but again, that's an indicator of just how strong this storm was here, folks. A dangerous storm indeed as it was tracking across here these areas, but the impacts were not as nasty toward Tallahassee, toward Leon County here, and that was some good news for those folks there. Still significant, still pretty on par with what we saw with Hermine, which will be this track here as we kind of look. I know, got to make sure I'm focusing on Hermine versus the other storm there back in 66. You can see Hermine pretty close track to that storm in 66. But that storm, that was in the peak of hurricane season. It was a little to the east, but Tallahassee getting an eye wall, pretty significant impacts. Hermine, Michael, pretty similar impacts for Tallahassee, of course. Hermine, not near as strong of a storm overall. Tallahassee got some of the worst impacts from Hermine. Michael, of course, the worst impacts toward the west. They were catastrophic toward Panama City, toward areas there around even Mariana. Some very significant damage, but you see Earl there in 98 coming in toward Panama City Beach, but then Kate in 85 actually probably had that eastern side here closest to Tallahassee, and that's why they had such the problems they did. And the anniversary of that here, very unusual here, being in later November, a storm that hit the U.S. like Kate did here in 1985. I know Michael there in 2018. That was in October, so a little later in hurricane season, but Hermine at the peak pretty much, Earl about the peak, but Caden later November, Agnes there, and then going back to that storm in 66 as well, Alma or Alma, depending on how you pronounce that. We're talking about storms in 72 and 66 that happened in June. So interesting to see earlier in hurricane season for some, later for some, and then the peak for some. So you always got to be prepared here. But we're not tracking anything of interest right now. As we get on over toward that rainfall forecast, you do see here, taking a look at the next 7 days, you can see the rainfall towards South Florida could be something to kind of keep tabs on. Definitely in the view there to kind of watch, but you see northern Florida not near as much rain. We'll keep our eyes on things as we're looking toward West Palm Beach to see the timing on that. But as we look up toward north again, you see here in northern Florida, just not expecting too much rain overall, but we're going to have a little bit of a chance here as you'll see in that extended outlook. But you can always go to cloudweather.com /radar though for an interactive look at things when we're not on. You see that's plenty of forecast. We could have some fog around as we get toward that Wednesday, patchy AM fog, a possibility. Thursday, more fog likely there, more widespread possibly. The temperature's going up, you see 55, but then you see temperatures kind of deviating a little bit toward Friday afternoon, falling on down with the one system coming through. We rise up kind of after that a little bit though as we get toward later on in the weekend, but as we get toward next Tuesday, you can see here you have 63 degrees for that high, 43 for the low. You can see when our next big cool down really is, because you have 55 here Monday, 43 Tuesday, getting below average again, and that could be coinciding here with a big Thanksgiving storm system. We'll have to keep our eyes on that. They're too early to get into more details there. Maybe not stormy for our area necessarily, just the cooler air, but some parts of the country could see some storminess from it. So we'll keep our eyes on that. With a picture, of course, to go back on over toward that viewpoint of the area. You do see an increased rain chance for Monday in there, but only up to 30% for now. We'll reevaluate that. But you see the temperatures here going to be falling on down. We have 52 right now. I think we pretty much covered everything we need to here. There's not a lot going on right now. It's just good news, obviously, here as we're toward November 16th, that hurricane season wrapping up. Not expecting any development really there of any concerns. That's always great news. I know looking back in 85, we had some really warm temperatures there right before that storm hit. Not as warm now, but obviously that was just one factor in the weather scenario. Multiple factors came together for Kate. We're not seeing those type of factors right now, so don't worry about anything in toward the tropics. You have to have an area of interest to begin with. We're not seeing anything in terms of tropical cyclone genesis right now. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great night.